Hi, it's Mitch from PickDawgz.com, and it is Friday, May 24th, 2024. This is our first half and first 5 innings video. What we do is we cover any relevant first halves and, well, the first 5 innings of all the Major League Baseball games. This is a new video series, just started up this week, so any suggestions that you might have for this video series going forward, by all means, let us know. We try and accommodate them, but if they're within reason, if we can't, we can't, but we do our best, and of course, hey, we're all in this together. The whole idea is to beat the books. We also have a little fun here on these videos to talk about what happened today in history. Today, Bob Dylan was born. You guys know I love my music. I wear my shirts in my videos. And, Bob Dylan certainly has had an influence on every major kind of music of our generation. He's the Shakespeare of our generation. But anyways, hopefully he helps us shake up the books and shake them down. Let's win some cash today. Let's get right into today's action. For the first game on today's slate, we go to the NBA, to the Western Conference Finals, Game 2 in Minnesota, where the Timberwolves are hosting the Dallas Mavericks. It was the Mavericks getting the win in Game 1, and the Timberwolves, now their backs are to the wall as they've lost home court advantage in this series. With the Mavs up 1-0. The thing about both these teams, though, is they both stink in the first half. When you look at the ROI on betting these teams in the first half, they are both in the negative. I showed on the screen the Dallas negative ROI, but I have to say, Minnesota, really only 2% better, but still to the negative. So I think in this particular game, where the positive ROI has been found in the first half, has really been on the totals. I don't love giving out a ton of totals. You guys know, if you've seen any of my videos, I don't usually give out a lot. But in here, there's some pretty strong trends here to the under with these two teams. We're going to roll with the under in the first half of the Timberwolves Mavericks, our first pick of today. For our first game, we head to Detroit, where the Tigers are taking on the Blue Jays. It was all Blue Jays on Thursday night in Game 1 of this series, and in this one, the Tigers go with Matt Manning on the bump, while the Blue Jays go with Alek Manoah. Manoah looked absolutely horrible in the minors this season after imploding last year in the major leagues, but since returning to the Blue Jays after a little bit of a rough outing in his first start, he's been outstanding, really, only with a 3.0 ERA. When we look at Manning, 4.88 ERA for the season, ERA close to 7 over his last 3 starts. The thing is that the Jays last night really wasn't an anomaly. What it was really a continuation of a trend, as the Jays are 7-2 in their last 9 games against the Tigers. Generally, the Tigers really not very good in the underdog role either, and I just don't see Manning holding them down. I don't love the Blue Jays. Most people know that watch our videos, but I'm going to roll with them here, and that'll be my pick for the first 5 innings. For our next game, we go to Pittsburgh, where the Pirates are taking on the Atlanta Braves. It's Bailey Falter on the mound for the Pirates, and the Braves have yet to name their starter. The Braves pitching staff, of course, has been thinned out with the injury to Spencer Strider earlier this season, but rumor has it the Braves are in the market for another pitcher, and the rumor has it their target is Zach Eflin for the Tampa Bay Rays, who is available, probably just hammering out what the details of the trade are going to be at this point. But the way that we're looking at this particular game is Falter has pitched really well, and the Pirates have played really well through the first half of their games, and of course the bullpen has imploded on them the last several games. But the thing is, overall, even though the Pirates are hitting a little bit better in the recent games, the Braves generally play really well in Pittsburgh, 6-2 straight up in their last 8. I just think that the Braves, they will always seem to find a solution, and no one's really come close to getting a run off the Braves early. I'm going to roll with the Braves in this one. We'll have more details on the live show. For our next game, we head to Washington, where the Nationals are hosting the Mariners. George Kirby gets the ball for the Mariners. It's Mackenzie Gore on the mound for the Nationals. Kirby, of course, a really good young talent, as is Mackenzie Gore. Of course, he was involved in that Soto trade to the Padres. He was, in fact, a central figure in that. What we've seen from Gore is he's still a young pitcher going through the process, but at the same time, this guy, when he starts rolling, he really racks up the strikeouts. Meanwhile, Kirby has been very good too, but he's also been susceptible at times, and we see his numbers slipping just a little bit recently to a 4.50 ERA over his last 3 starts. When it comes to hitting, neither of these teams really excel hitting right-handed pitching, and recently the Mariners have actually hit righties better. But I think for me, Kirby seems the pitcher more likely to make the mistake. And in this sort of game, and a place where Seattle really hasn't played well, I'm going to roll with the Nationals as my pick in this one. For our next game, we head to Tampa Bay, where the Rays are taking on the Royals. Armstrong listed as the starter here for the Rays, and Lugo on the mound for the Royals. This is one of those games where you kind of throw out the starting pitcher for the Rays, because what it is this is a bullpen game. Of course, the Rays, they invented the bullpen game, and they are very, very good at it. The thing is, they haven't had as much success this year with the bullpen game as they've had in the past, but at the same time, the bullpen hasn't been as good. But here they come with a 2.24 ERA for the pen over the last 10 games compared to a 4.36 bullpen ERA for the season. Normally, we don't even talk about bullpens when we're talking first 5 innings, but like I said, this one's a bullpen game. The bigger issue here for the Rays is they're up against Lugo with a 1.79 ERA for the Royals and a 2.21 over his last 3 games. He's just absolutely rock solid, and I'll tell you what, the Royals are the far better hitting team. We're going to take the Royals in the first 5 as our pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Cincinnati, where the Reds are taking on the Dodgers. Back in the day, these two teams used to play in the same division, if you can believe that. That was really not all that long ago, but at the same time, I don't know, still some animosity here between these two. But the way that they play right now, it's James Paxton on the bump for the Dodgers, Graham Ashcraft on the mound for the Reds. Ashcraft has been hit pretty hard once again this season. The righty comes in his last 3 starts with a 5.79 ERA, up from his 4.25 for the season, while Paxton's numbers are heading in the right direction, from 2.84 to an ERA in the high ones in his last 3 starts. But we know Paxton better than this. He's not a 1.79 ERA guy, and playing in Great American Ballpark, I expect to see both these teams absolutely hammering the baseball. I think if you're going to Great American Ballpark to watch this game, you better bring a glove. I like the over in the Reds-Dodgers for the first 5 innings, and that's my pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Citi Field in New York, where the Mets are taking on the Giants. It's Christian Scott on the bump for the Mets, and it's Kyle Harrison on the mound for the Giants. You know, about a week ago, the Mets weren't hitting lefties at all, and they certainly have picked up the pace there, hitting lefties at 225 over their last 10 games, and 221 now for the season. But I think what's kind of flown under the radar here, with the way the Giants won those games in Pittsburgh, is the Giants have been absolutely hitting the cover off the ball recently. 284 versus right-handed pitching and 320 versus left-handed pitching over their last 10 games. Christian Scott's a good young pitcher, but as we see with young pitchers when they come up, maybe their first time out, the other teams haven't seen him, but then the book gets out on him and they get hit a little bit harder, and we're starting to see that with Scott. And the way that the Giants are hitting the baseball, look out. I expect this one to be a one-sided mismatch. I'm taking the Giants, and that's going to be my pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Fenway Park in Boston, where the Red Sox are taking on the Milwaukee Brewers in interleague action. You know, there are a lot of factors to consider in this game, but first let's go over the pitchers. Crawford going for the Red Sox, and it's Bryce Wilson on the mound for the Brewers. Crawford has that 2.17 ERA for the season, but it is going in the wrong direction, 3.48 in his last 3 starts, while Bryce Wilson, 2.79 for the season, 2.45 in his last 3 starts. Pretty even effort. But one thing we know about the Red Sox, they're absolutely terrible at home, and the Brewers, well, one of the kings of interleague games. We look at how these teams are hitting right-handed pitching. The Brewers, 261 versus righties this season. The Red Sox, 238. Looking at the last 10 games, the Brewers hitting 244 versus right-handed pitching, and the Red Sox at 230. I gotta say, almost everything and every angle in this game points to the Milwaukee Brewers, who are not playing their best baseball coming in, but the Red Sox don't play well at home. I'm taking the Brewers. And that'll be our pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Minnesota, where the Minnesota Twins take on the Texas Rangers. Bailey Ober on the mound for the Twins, and it's Jose Urena on the mound for the Rangers. While Urena certainly has gotten a bad rap, the thing is, he's pitched really well this season out of the starting rotation. 3.29 ERA for the season, and a 2.04 ERA through his last 3 starts. Meanwhile, for Bailey Ober, this is a guy that's feast or famine. He's had a few blow-up starts, but outside of that, he's pitched really well. But the thing is, the numbers show that, well, those blow-ups certainly cost him, at least as far as the overall stats go. One of these guys that's very tough to judge. 4.40 ERA for the season, 4.41 over his last 3 starts. Thing is, neither of these teams hitting right-handed pitching, with the Rangers at 189 over their last 10 games, down from their season average of 247, but the Twins hitting a paltry 159 versus righties. This thing smells of an under. I'm going with the under in the Rangers-Twins, and that's our first 5 pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Chicago, where the White Sox are taking on the Orioles. It's Chris Flexen on the mound for the White Sox and Corbin Burnes on the mound for the Orioles. Thursday night's game couldn't have been a worse ending and more of a black eye on baseball than it was, as an infield fly rule ball that was caught was ruled as runner interference, blocking the guy trying to catch the ball, who caught the ball anyway. And of course, the runner never even saw the fielder at the time. It was a sad state because the White Sox had the tying runs on base and the go-ahead run at the plate at the time of this call. And this is one of those things where I always say the worst calls are not reviewable. Corbin Burnes gets the ball here for the Orioles. It's Flexen on the mound for the White Sox. Burnes, of course, is Burnes, and you're going to see these gigantic prices, on the Orioles when he pitches. To me, there's never value in a guy betting on a guy like Burnes. I'm going to take the White Sox on pure value alone, and that'll be my pick for the first 5. For our next game, we head to Busch Stadium in St. Louis, where the Cardinals are taking on the Cubs in a renewal of the oldest rivalry in all of sports. Imanaga on the mound for the Cubbies and Michaelis on the mound for the Cards. Imanaga's been nothing short of outstanding, really giving up very few runs, really not even a lot of hits. Meanwhile, on the other side, Michaelis, coming off of his best start of the season, having a pretty rough year, but when he sees the Cubs, his eyes light up. He is a Cubs killer, with the Cards winning 7 of his last 10 starts against the Chicago Cubs. Crazy stuff. The thing is that, the Cardinals bats, which were really soft most of the early part of the season, have all of a sudden lit up. For instance, 201 versus lefties this season, but 273 over their last 10 games. They're hitting 281 versus righties, while the Cubs hitting just 185 versus right-handed pitching. The world is enamored with Imanaga, and I gotta say, when the world's enamored with somebody, I'm always on the other side. I'm taking the Cardinals in this one, and that's my pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Coors Field in Colorado, where the Rockies are taking on the Phillies. The Phillies continue to trudge on, leading the National League East, while the Rockies last place in the National League West. But, we've seen at least some signs of life from them. Block gets the ball here for the Rockies, while it's Sanchez on the mound for the Phils. Sanchez has been pretty solid this season with a 3.31 ERA and 2.75 over his last 3 starts, while Block headed in the right direction, ballooning to a 7.62 ERA over his last 3 starts. The thing is when you look at the way these teams are hitting the ball versus lefties on the season, the Rockies not too bad at 242, but over their last 10 games, below 200 at 194, while the Phils hitting lefties over their last 10 at 261 and 268 for the season. We all know this Phillies lineup is very, very tough, and playing in that thin air Coors, oh man, it's going to be a lot of long balls. Hate to do it, but I'll take the Phillies. I'll lay the run line. That'll be my pick for this game. For our next game, we head to the Big A in Anaheim, where the Angels are taking on the Guardians. It's Patrick Sandoval on the bump for the Halos, and it is Logan Allen on the mound for the Guardians. Pair of lefties going at it here, and the thing about these two teams, man, they absolutely tear up left-handed pitching. We'll get to that in a second. Logan Allen, 4.91 ERA for the season over his last 3 games, though, 4.40, and then for Sandoval, 4.59 for the season, but coming down to 2.39 over his last 3 games. He's actually been pitching really well. Now back to this hitting versus left-handed pitching thing I alluded to earlier. The Guardians hitting 253 versus lefties this season, 271 over the last 10 games, while the Angels 271 versus lefties and 304 over their last 10 games. These guys are going to be getting their licks in. I think Sandoval's pitching a little better. I'm going to lean to the Angels in this one, and that'll be my pick for the first 5. For our next game, we head on out to Oakland, where the A's are taking on the Astros in the American League West battle. Ross Stripling on the mound for the A's. It's Justin Verlander on the mound for the Astros. The Astros still trying to put it together, and the American League West is still wide open at the top as nobody seems to be running away with it. But Verlander, coming off of a start where he didn't pitch all that badly, but one pitch gave up the grand slam to William Contreras in that game against the Brewers. Meanwhile, on the other side of it, Stripling is who Stripling is, and thing is his 5.19 ERA for the season has ballooned to 8.49 over his last 3 starts. When we look at the way these teams are hitting right-handed pitching, both of them actually hit right-handed pitching extremely well, with the Astros at 259 for the season and 283 over their last 10 games, while the A's 226 for the season and 252 over their last 10. I just got to say this, if you want to bet against Justin Verlander the game after he gives up a grand slam, be my guest. I won't be with you. I'm taking the Astros first 5. For our next game, we go to Arizona, where the Diamondbacks are taking on the Marlins. It's Zach Gallen on the bump for the D-backs, Braxton Garrett on the mound for the Marlins. Garrett has top of the rotation type stuff. We just don't always see it. And because he's young and, a little inconsistent, he really gets popped once in a while. And that's why he's got a 10.24 ERA over his last 3 starts. And of course, for the season as well. When we look at Zach Gallen, 3.02 ERA for the season, 2.41 for his last 3 starts. Simply one of the best pitchers in the game today. When we look at the way the Diamondbacks have been hitting, the thing is they absolutely club lefties, 288 for the season and 227 though over their last 10, while the Marlins hitting 248 versus right-handed pitching. I think this game might be tighter than people think, and with the way the Diamondbacks bullpen has been, I think the Marlins might have a chance to steal it the full ride. But I think going through the first 5 innings, I'm going to ride with Zach Gallen and the D-backs, and that'll be my pick for this game. For our last game of the night, we go to probably the best game of the night, which is at Petco Park in San Diego, where the Padres are hosting the Yankees. The Yankees absolutely red hot right now, and pounding the baseball and getting really effective pitching, both from the starting rotation and the bullpen. While the Padres, really good through their first few starters, but the back end of the rotation not holding it up, but still good enough to beat the bad teams. Of course, not facing a bad team here, but they're at the top of the rotation with Yu Darvish, who hasn't allowed a run in his last 4 starts. In fact, he's only scattered hits over that time. Carlos Rodon on the mound for the Yankees, pitching a lot better than what he did earlier this season. He's got a 2.45 ERA through his last 3 starts. Darvish, 0.00, Blutarskiing the competition. But at the same time, when we look at the hitting, the Padres hitting 250 versus left-handed pitching on the season. The Yankees 280 versus righties, but Darvish has given up nothing. If you can't score runs, you can't win. I'm going to take the Padres first 5 innings, and that'll be my pick for this game. That wraps up today's first halves and first 5 innings. Of course, if you're looking for our best bets, the games we're betting today, head on over to our website, PickDawgz.com. Click on the Premium Picks tab. If you're looking for PickDawgz gear, the stuff that we wear, like this zip up that I'm wearing now, or the hat that I'm wearing now, or some of the Nike pullovers, or some of the other Nike gear that we wear, we have all this available at our website under the merch tab. We don't sell any merch that I wouldn't wear myself, or that the guys, the PickDawgz crew wouldn't wear themselves. So if you're interested, check it out. But anyways, thanks everyone for joining me. Like I said, any suggestions, if you want to leave your picks, by all means, throw them in the comments. We'll see you tomorrow with more first halves and first 5 innings.